So January 20th is a very special day for me when it comes to this channel, because January 20th, 2021 is the day that I released my Why I Hate Tamaki video, which is my most viewed video ever. Fun times. I remember it like it was yesterday. It holds a special place in my heart as it's the first video I ever got 1,000 views on. It was received way better than I could have hoped, and it was kind of my breakout hit. So considering the fact that I only made this channel to talk about my anime opinions in the comments, this video catapulted so many opportunities I could have never hoped for. However, one thing I noticed is that while it was definitely received very well, when people didn't like it, they definitely made it clear in the comments. Now, to be honest with you, it's a free platform, so I don't really care much. You can like or dislike whatever you want in the comments. But you also gotta allow me to respond because, well, I like doing it. One, I like responding to comments to form some sort of expansion on the opinions in opposition to my video. So it actually gives people a good chance to explain themselves in a very good faith way. Plus, I like good faith anime discussions. It's a topic that you can be passionate and kind of confrontational about, but it has no bearing on your life whatsoever. However, I notice there's a lot of comments that I'm just not seeing till it's much too late because the channel's getting to the size where I'm starting to miss comments, or that I just don't have time to respond to the comments in a satisfactory way. So I've always wanted to do a response video on not just this video, but some of my other bigger videos, but I just didn't think a response video to this would have much to talk about, so I never got to it. But on the 20th, I talked about this video with my lady. Let's call her Miss Michael Talks Anime because she values her privacy. But anyway, I was talking to her about this video, and that's when I realized there's actually a lot to cover here. And because of that, I'm making this video. So here's how this is going to go down. I've noticed that generally speaking, the arguments could be put into categories that cover a bunch of comments at the same time. And so how I will do this is the order of the categories will go from most valid to least valid, meaning if your comment fits into the category that's at last, I think your comment was just a bunch of dog feces.
Fecal matter.
And if your comment was in the first category, then yeah, I think your comment is valid in some sort of way. Doesn't mean I don't disagree, but I think it's valid. So with that out of the way, so the first category is based on the fact that Tamaki's, well, whole ability is based on the lore of the Nekomata, which means that her character should be based off of misfortune and seduction. Now, I think this category and the category that will come up later in the video are tangentially related as they have to do with writing, but I feel like this one engages with the topic of the video a bit more. So this is the one that I think is the most valid. I think the comment that encapsulates this argument the best is from HasterKing9635, which is very long, so I'm just going to put the comment here for y'all to read. Okay, you can take a look at it, like it, you know, it's nice. Now, in some ways I actually do agree with the comment. I think a character like Tamaki, who is clearly struggling with insecurities and her place in the world, does not have to mature in straight lines. And I'll even concede that since her powers are derived from the lore of Nekomata, it should be incorporated in her story as well. In other words, writing Tamaki to be seductive, to be unlucky, to be unfortunate for others, and struggling with the implications of that is a good idea. But even HasterKing9635 would agree that there are better ways to write that in her character where she can be seductive and be unlucky, but still make her feel capable. For example, I think the idea of her being victim to misfortune outside of her control until actually accepting herself is a wonderful thing to write about in smart ways. Some ways I can think of off the top of my head is things like Tamaki not being able to perform in the clutch, like missing a final blow when she's winning a fight and allowing a villain to capitalize off of that. Or her maybe ruining a teammate's favorite family artifact. I don't know, certain things that don't make you hate her, but have sympathy for her and her dire situation. And yeah, every once in a while I could see a little nudity in moderation, and by moderation I mean like once every 10 episodes, working as a way to subvert expectations. But even then, I feel like it would just come off as annoying and kind of a way to shoehorn fan service in there. This is the problem. It is placed really poorly. And my main thing with it is this. When you give a character like Tamaki diversity and potential, and she doesn't use it, it just makes me, the viewer and reader, feel frustrated. She does not have to be Fire Force's Urza from a combat perspective, but I feel like she should be used as you've written her as. Which leads me to... Okay, do you remember when I said earlier in the video that there's another category tangentially related to the first category? This is the category. No one said it like this, but the category is usually for the comments that came in the form of he's specifically writing the character like this because her character is a commentary on fan service. Now, I'll get into the fan service part of the argument in another category because there was a lot of comments in support of her fan service that didn't share this nuanced opinion, or at least didn't tie it back to the idea of her writing. So I've separated the comments that kind of talked about liking fan service for fan service's sake and liking the fan service as a commentary in the context of Fire Force. So with that out of the way, let me ask you something. If you give a character a diverse moveset, make her one of only 3 third generation fire users in your crew, a power that's extremely powerful and rare in the world building of Fire Force, by the way, and also make her on paper a high IQ force on the squad, just to be a commentary on fan service and comedy relief. And when I mean just, I mean 95% of her character is that, which is kind of being generous, by the way. Is that not a horrible way to use your character? Do you see what I'm talking about and why I'm mad? The point of the video is good writing versus bad writing for a character. And specifically, and I want to go on a limb here, good writing versus bad writing for a female character. Tamaki does not just have to be a commentary on fan service and ecchi. Tamaki does not just have to be comedy relief, and a pretty garbage attempt at it, by the way. Especially if Okubo has established her as a combat character. My main reason for not liking her is just because, like Sakura, Tsunade, Momo Yaoyorozu, Rukia, and so many other shonen female characters, we're told these women are powerful. We're told these women can fight with the best. We're told these women can hold their own and are tough and no one wants to mess with them. But when it's time for them to perform on screen, they fall flat on their face for no other reason than they are the women of the show. Also, in terms of Okubo's actual commentary on fan service, it's not like he was actually being profound either, or even placed his commentary well. Here's what I'll concede on the point of the message that Okubo was making. There are a collection of chapters where he addresses the fan service commentary, and on some level, I get where he's going with it, but there are some issues. Before I explain, there are spoilers for this part of the video, so here's a timestamp to skip. Alright, basically from chapters 278 to 283, Tamaki has another fight with Assault. Kind of. It's not actually Assault, it's a doppelganger for Assault, who takes out some of Company 8, and then the real Assault comes to defend Tamaki. It's a mess, but anyway, during the fight, she's criticized and shamed by Doppelganger Assault, as well as the crowd who gather around the fight, who criticize her for always being nude, which then leads to her being the embodiment of sex appeal. I think it's not like a power-up, Lick just kind of says it. Hey everyone, Michael from the future here. So the reason why my summary on this sounds kind of messy is because Okubo's writing itself is messy. He kind of fumbled this part here. I think he was really upset with the criticism of Tamaki and took it so personally that he was trying to fit a ton of rebuttals at once during these 5 chapters. So a lot of his writing just comes off as him responding to strawman arguments no one reasonable would actually make when it comes to his writing of Tamaki, that he's having with himself because he thinks the argument is against, well, I think it's against his interpretation of feminists, which, yes, is as weird as it sounds, but I'm not gonna make more interpretations of what I think he was going for here. Let's get back to the video. Nevertheless, Tamaki in the fight tells people, including Doppelganger Assault, that it's her body and she doesn't deserve to be shamed, especially since she's also the object of their desire at the same time. And with help, again, she wins. Now, in fairness to the help thing, while I think one of the tropes I definitely should put on the most annoying tropes list was female characters always needing help against a male character that the author actually likes, I will say in fairness, Doppelganger Assault is absurdly strong, and at least she does deal the final blow, so that's a plus. Now, this is a charitable explanation to the manga chapters, but I'll give this explanation because even though it wasn't done with the best execution, if I'm being honest, I do think it's what Okubo was going for, so I'm going to make the best faith interpretation of these chapters I can. Now, the symbol of life thing and the strongman arguments that he makes in these chapters aside, I think on its own, it's a fair point to call out the oxymoron on the female experience when it comes to nudity that society, men and women alike, place on women. It's more of a men thing, if I have to be honest, but women do it too. Nudity to women is treated as both a horrible and repulsive thing to display, while also making women the subject of desire when they do it. And that juxtaposition is frustrating. So a message telling them to take ownership of their bodily autonomy in spite of the noise is a plus. Extra points if you can convey that message while maintaining a good flow and tone of your writing. And also, while he does fumble this other part clumsily as well, I think Okubo does make another point that I actually agree with, and that is a person's insecurities when looking at female anime characters, female cartoon characters, or just real women in the world today is their own insecurities. Whether it's because they are ashamed that they like it, hate their own appearance, or any other reason, it is not the responsibility of Tamaki and other female characters or female models or just regular women walking in the world today to care about your internal feelings when looking at their body. Sometimes we blame a woman's bodily autonomy for our own uncomfortable feelings when we see it, so we take it out on the woman by saying she can't dress like that, when in reality, the problem is our own feelings around that. And look, if that's you, then you have to grapple with that without blaming that woman. On some level, I think Okubo was trying to start that conversation, and to that I say, fair enough. More than fair enough, actually. I do agree on some level that's kind of what happens a lot of times. Now, what I will say in opposition to that writing of that point is that again, Okubo's writing is clumsy here, and it just comes off as defensive. B, women can and should be desired for so many other reasons as well. So a message telling people you don't always have to sexualize a woman and writing her character around that message, which was what Okubo was trying to say in a roundabout way in my opinion, would have probably went over so much better. But to be honest, that might be a message that he was trying to express with Maki in the show, as she has a couple arcs where she has to grapple with her femininity while being on the job. So his message through Tamaki's arc here just comes off as confusing and in a way redundant. C, she is canonically a 17-year-old, so having her be the vehicle for this point is kind of yikes, and it doesn't help that he uses the term, quote, the ideal form of sex appeal, unquote. So, you know, even more yikes. But D, women are not a monolith. Some want to flaunt, some don't. Sometimes it depends for both sides of the spectrum, and every woman's thoughts on it are a sliding scale of sorts depending on the situation. But the point is, it's up to them on how they choose to go about it. Within reason, of course, like no woman should be walking up the street naked or stoning another woman for wearing something that's a little revealing. But you get the point. Now, straw man aside, my point with the letter D, pause. My point here is that a character where going nude is literally not up to her to be the conduit of the message of the issues with the nudity conversation on both sides, while sort of commendable, is kind of misguided. Add that the problem with Okubo's writing in Fire Force is that he has serious tonal and flow issues in general, and his placement of fan service here is no different. So as a result, even though there is a message here that I can kind of sort of get behind when squinting and looking to the side a little bit, the fan service is placed so poorly that most fans were either just annoyed by the fan service because it was legitimately ruining the flow and tone of the story that he was trying to tell, nothing more, nothing less, or we're looking at the fan service just for fan service sake and not actually taking note of the message he wanted to tell. So by the time the message came, it fell on deaf ears. So again, it's a question of writing. See, I wish more people would just think of it like this. Examine how much nudity has to come into play to prove a point, and if it can be placed in a way to buttress storytelling, or if a mangaka is doing it just because they know it sells to people who want to see more anime tatas, are questions I think more people in anime, whether it be mangakas, show writers, and quite frankly fans of the anime, should be more honest with themselves rather than being defensive. But that's a conversation for later. Anyway, moving on to... So this category has by far the least amount of comments, but this is a category that did stick out to me a little bit because it couldn't be further from the truth. I actually do like Okubo's work, and if you were to ask me who is the most underrated mangaka of all time, I wouldn't say Takahashi, I wouldn't say Arakawa, I wouldn't say Togashi, I wouldn't even say Araki. I'd say Okubo, because of his previous manga Soul Eater, proved that he could write female characters and black characters on a conceptual level. And the thing is, he alluded to the latter being an issue in anime back in 2009 and showed his appreciation for Franco-Afro cinema, hence the African names of his black characters. I love how his characters are not just walking stereotypes, they are culturally relevant. They are characters that actually represent how a regular black person, whether they be African or African North American, would actually look and act. I specifically mentioned him in multiple videos talking about how to do black representation well, because honestly, in terms of Japanese-born mangakas, he's the gold standard. Killick Rung, Ogu Montgomery, Sid Barrett, Mira Nagus, Chiron, or Onyango are all his characters and are all great examples of how to do black representation well. Atsushi Okubo understands the assignment when it comes to black characters, and he does his homework. Emphasis on does his homework. So when your favorite mangaka drops the ball when it comes to black representation in their manga, you can't tell me the classic excuse of Japan is a homogenous culture, because Atsushi Okubo shows that you can do this well if you're willing to take the time to. It also seems like he does his homework with the female characters as well. Yes, he's not above the fan service here or the body shame jokes there, but he makes female characters that are capable and multifaceted, which is more than I can say for even some female mangakas. Takahashi, looking at you. He's definitely not perfect at all, but he tries, and that's the important part. For example, Maka from Soul Eater and ironically Maki from Fire Force are both done really well. So when I made the video, it was more so out of disappointment because he is usually better at this. I think part of the reason why people thought I was being really harsh or thought I was being malicious when it came to talking about Okubo is that people aren't used to people giving criticism to creators, even when the person doing the critiquing does actually like their work. But in my opinion, it's important to critique people even when you like them. I think that's part of the reason why I comment back on my videos, because I actually do want people to know that I take their praise and or criticism in a constructive way for my own videos. And on that note, that's the reason why I made the FD signifier video. Yes, I'm a huge fan of his work. I think he does really great work. But when I think he's wrong about his opinions on anime, I'm gonna say something. It's also the reason why I made a Twitter and took time out of my schedule to debate Omizi from Let's Keep It a Buck, because I do think he was wrong there too, but I actually do like his work. And by the way, it's kind of the reason why I like having debates about things that honestly do not matter. But neither here nor there. Let's move on. So this is the other part of the fan service argument that I was mentioning earlier in the video. And to me, it's this. it's a classic example of people who didn't watch the video or did not listen to the points I made carefully. Honestly, that happens a lot in my videos, and I know why it happens. People are so blinded by emotion, usually anger, that they fail to properly engage with the points made. It's a very human thing to do. The problem is that it also admittedly makes said humans look foolish when they're caught doing it, so they have to double down. Like this one commenter you see on your screen. For the record, I've caught people doing it for points I've made on the Tamaki video, for points I've made on the Isekai video, for points I've made on the female characters in Shonen video, even the power of friendship bit in the tropes video, which, side note, no, it does not matter what Ichigo's genetics are if his power boost awakens when his friends are in trouble because of a seemingly unstoppable force who lacked flaws, which Aizen undisputedly was, and then Ichigo saved them because he was motivated by his friends out of nowhere. It is still a power of friendship trope, so stop using his genetics as a defense because it is irrelevant. That is the last thing I'll say on that. Love y'all, but truly, come on, people. Although I will concede I should have used fairy tale clips because it's a better example, so mea culpa on that front. But still, no, Bleach is an example of the power of friendship trope. Too bad, so sad. Truth hurts, end of story. Anyway, back on topic. My point is that I get why it happens, but what shocked me is to the degree of how frequent it was and the assumptions people made, despite me making it explicitly clear that I don't really care of the fan service in of itself in the video. When talking about Tamaki, the first thing that comes up is the fan service, and I just want to get this out of the way. I don't mind the Lucky Lecture comedy bits in concept. Now, I could just say you didn't listen and end it here, but I do want to engage with the idea of liking fan service a little bit so you guys get it once and for all. Guess what? If a mangaka and or anime writer actually places it well, you will see women like when people show skin too. What, you think those Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia TikTok fan edits, fan art, and fan fictions are made by men? Also, on that note, you know how many of my female anime friends keep calling Gojo and Nanami daddy? And no, they don't mean father.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You get the point I'm trying to make here. And also, let's not get started on how many females love Zoro.
Look at the guy in the front, he's even going, One Piece!
One Piece. The one with the green hair is so hot.
Zoom in. What do you mean when you say
time skip?
Hot? What's hot about him?
Yeah.
Look! Oh!
Hell, anecdotally speaking, it seemed like to me, female accounts on the app formerly known as Twitter were more likely to retweet the Mushoku Tensei scene. You know, the scene where Sophie is talking about what she would do to Rudy, but neither here nor there. The point is that more female accounts were more likely to retweet that scene than men on the app. Which, by the way, Mushoku Tensei is probably the worst offender of fan service. So my point being here is, would a reasonable and rational person, no matter the gender, ignore, not watch with no complaint, put up with, or dare I say in limited occasions, enjoy the fan service in anime? Yes! Yes! Okay? Yes, they would. Why? Because women like sex. Men like sex. Most people in the world, men, women, or otherwise, like sex. So when it comes to fan service, most people in the world understand it, and dare I say, even like it. Even I'm not above it. After all, Emilia Clarke and Nathalie Emmanuel in those Game of Thrones scenes were a lot to process. Okay? But what I don't think people understand with our complaints is we are just simply asking, why is it placed mid-fight scene or mid-strategy scene? Or for it to be literal essay when you as a fan are just trying to get into the rhythm of a story, when the fan service can be put to the side to actually serve the narrative of the story, and you can use that fan service for, oh, I don't know, a scene where her being unclothed actually makes sense. Because when the clothes are coming off, when it comes to women in shonen, more often than not, all you're signaling to the audience is that you think her as a character is only good for, and screw it, I'll just say it now, sexual desire. Whereas when women are thirsting for the male characters in One Piece scenes and Jujutsu Kaisen scenes, for whatever reason, the mangaka still writes them as capable shonen characters. Now I have my theories as to why, but that's another video for another time. However, on that note, it's the reason why one of the things that grinds my gears when it comes to shonen anime is that the medium has a huge aversion to female characters beating semi-important male characters in serious fights. Why? Because in a story where we're told any male or female can become equally as strong, when female characters are always losing, then it's not true and undermines the story. So despite pretending like they are, Okubo made his story so that female fire soldiers are not there to be equal like the story says, but they're there for eye candy. This is the problem most people have. I have a theory that this is probably a factor as to why Season 3 is taking forever to come out despite being confirmed and rumored that Studio Shaft is taking over the animation. Fact is, now people on the outside looking in see this show as the show where girls' clothes are always coming off mid-fight for no reason. That just turns people off. It's not just the quote-unquote woke people. And do you want to know the reason why? Sure, people want to see clothes coming off, but in a way that feels well placed. And that's the thing I just don't understand when it comes to this argument on fan service. It always dissolves into black or white arguments, or people who like fan service getting super defensive, when most people are just saying, hey, place it better and make it make sense. Which leads me to the last and easily the stupidest category here. So I picked out this comment because it quintessentially explains everything. First of all, I'm not American, but whatever. In all seriousness, I think most people understand why this is dumb. Most people's politics are complicated. They're not in neat packages, and while anime is political, don't let a person tell you different. A person's taste in anime is the least of their worries when it comes to their politics. But the reason why people say things like this is because engaging with the complex political and cultural views, as well as the structure of it, can be depressing. I want you to imagine how awful it can be to realize that you are consistently supporting a political party who makes things worse for you in a certain sense. I.e., they pass laws that directly negatively affect you. You have to support a group that you don't actually agree with all the way, but you think they're the best possible choice for you. People obfuscate the other side's point, so even though you would probably agree with them in concept, you don't actually know till it's too late, and then have to regret it for years and years to come until the next election, etc., etc. And here's the kicker. You let them do it because the words that that politician said vibed with you. Or you know that and you're smarter than to be swayed, but it's still your best option in your country. So you compromise because, well, yeah, that's how politics work. So yeah, from my perspective, I think of politics as a very complicated and nuanced topic that can vary wildly. Doesn't always. Most of the time it doesn't, to be honest with you, but it can. But the people who talk about politics in my comments think of politics like they're a team sport because it's easier to engage with than the facts of politics being a very nuanced topic. Hey everyone, Michael from the future here. And as an aside, I just want to point out that this team versus team mentality in politics is kind of the worst thing to ever happen to politics. Never mind that it's led to packaged politics, which I think is ruining a lot of the developing countries' progress, but it dehumanizes the other side without trying to understand them, which is what leads to awful things like, you know, the G word. But that's another video for another time by another creator. It's not me. I am not going to make that video. Not now, not ever. I make anime videos. Anyway, back to the anime video. The problem with this team against team attitude is that it bleeds into talking about everything in culture, anime and writing included. So when I talk about how a female character is being done dirty, rather than grappling with that and figuring out why they're okay with that in some respects, It's easier for them to just say that all of a sudden I'm on the other team of the culture wars because it's a female character. So then they label me as something and dismiss my opinion, which, can't lie, is absurd to think. Now look, I won't sit here and tell a lie. Anime has always been political because anime is cultural, and cultural beliefs go hand in hand with political beliefs. With that being said, when I made a video to explain why Tamaki is the quintessential example of a badly written character, which was probably done on purpose because of yum yums and pigtails, and that's why the hate for her is so widespread, some people who like Tamaki get so defensive about it that they don't necessarily think straight. So rather than intellectually grappling with that and what it says about them, or even think about the writing and come up with a reasoned rebuttal, they write an angry response thinking that someone is coming after their politics. And let me just say, do you see how much I'd be okay with that if this was purely about debate? By doing that, you've essentially waived the argument to me and said that, Michael, you've won the debate, but I like things the way they are. Now, here's what I'll say in terms of the quote-unquote SJW stuff. Yes, she is also a badly written female character, and on some levels, yes, female characters in general need to be done better. Also, as I've alluded to, I think that's why Okubo probably thought he could get away with being lazy when it came to a female character. And by the way, it's not just him, it's other mangaka with other female characters. So I'm not just picking on Tamaki. It's Sakura having super strength and amazing chakra control only for her to fall flat more than she stands tall. It's Mikasa having her entire personality revolve around Eren, etc, etc. All people are asking mangakas to do is to maximize the potential of the female characters, because when they do, you not only get a better female character for sure, but you just get a better character, period. So I guess on some level that reveals my politics and sensibilities on women's rights, but honestly, when it comes to anime, I just want better written characters. In fact, the reason why I would make a video on politics in anime, well, I'd argue culture in anime, but anyway, the reason why is oftentimes we, well, mostly fans who hold strong beliefs in their politics, allow politics to blind them from watching a show objectively and giving criticism or praise properly. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's more often right-wingers than left-wingers, but both have the tendency to do it. But my point is this, just breathe. No one hates you unless you hate them. Touch grass, talk to people, and just engage with the talking point of Tamaki being a bad character. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a blurred on the internet. Okay, I think that's enough for one video. This thing got pretty long, and if you got to the end, God bless you, because this was a long, thick one. Pause. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm Michael. This video has been way longer than I thought it would be, and I need a nap. So later, and stay safe.